Welcome to the City of Coeur d'Alene's General Services Public Works Committee meeting. Today is November 9th, and I'll call this meeting to order. We have 4 items on the agenda today, and our first item is approval of award of contract for purchase of a new Caterpillar. And we have Kyle Marine from the Water Department Assistant Director here with us today.
Thank you, Council, for having me. We are in the market for a new backhoe. We have 2 backhoes in our fleet. They are on a rotational basis to be swapped out every 10 years and 5,000 hours, which is about the lifespan of where the machine starts to break down and have mechanical issues. We have reached that number and above 5,000 hours. We went to the state contract with the Sourcewell. It's a state agency that goes around and bids on multiple items, so you don't have to go through the whole process with the city and the long drawn-out process. So we piggybacked on a state contract with an IT backhoe, and I'm here to get permission to award that bid to Western States CAT for $105,932.92. I was going to attach the Sourcewell contract with it for your information. The problem is there's so much documentation there, it's actually a link. So it was a little hard to send off. But I went through all the information with the city attorney, and we should be good to go. Is there any questions that I might be able to answer for you?
Madam Chair, Kyle, I would just ask that you just enlighten us that sounds like the normal amount that you would pay for a Caterpillar. What have we paid in the past?
So the last backhoe I bought was about $3,000 less than this, which was 5 years ago, because we do one every 5 years, or we replace them every 10 years, so we end up replacing one about every 5 years. So the price hasn't gone up that much in the last 5 years from the last backhoe I purchased, and it's about $35,000 less than would it be if a customer from the public went out and purchased one from them.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Yeah, I would just guess that this isn't our first bid process with Western State CAT, and so, no, it looks good to me.
All right. Looking for a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to authorize a contract with Western States Equipment for the purchase of a new 2020 Caterpillar 420 backhoe in the amount of $105,932.92.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is approval of classification change to city's classification and compensation plan for the IT database application developer and approval of amendments to rules 15 and 20 of the personnel rules. And we welcome Melissa Tosi, our Human Resources Director, today.
Thank you. So I have 3 changes today. 2 are actual wording changes in our current personnel rules, and 1 is specific to our classification and compensation plan for one of our IT positions. So as far as the position goes, our Municipal Services Director during the budget process had came forward and discussed some of her IT needs and changes with staffing. With that, we had a new position that was approved through council. And part of her plan was to reallocate this IT database position, IT network administrator position, as a supervisor of the IT division, which would increase the leveling by 1 pay grade. So that was all approved through the budget process, but unfortunately it didn't get changed in the actual budget staffing line item. So kind of coming back for a double approval because it's not correct in the budget right now. So we just come back to ask that that position gets changed to what it was recommended to be at a pay grade 17, which would be a 10% increase, which would result in about an $8,600 increase for this budget cycle. So the Municipal Services Department has current savings in their budget to cover the cost of this. A couple things on that. Their IT network specialist position that's new came back at a pay grade 14 instead of a 15, so there's savings there. And then we haven't started recruiting for that position, so there's some savings just based on slow hiring for it.
Thank you. All right. Madam Chair?
Yes.
Melissa, actually, this will be for Troy, because you've explained it quite well. Troy, can you explain how it didn't end up in the budget when it was approved?
I would be able to explain that based on all the moving parts in that. In fact, the dollars were in the budget for it, it just didn't get categorized correctly? Is that the way it?
Well, there's a couple things in the staffing chart when you look at it. It shows that it's at a 17 because before we did the BDPA study in 2017, it was at a 17. But it was shown to be over market at that time, so we readjusted that leveling to be at a 16, which was a more appropriate leveling. So that piece never got updated in the budget, so it looks like it's a 17, but it's currently budgeted, the dollar amount in the budget at a 16. So it looks like it was changed, but the dollars for the position really were not allocated.
Okay. The reason I ask, I mean, we absolutely know this is a necessary position. Renata has sold me on that 100%. But I just want council to be consistent. You know, we did question the water department when it was not in the budget process of changing a classification. This
Yeah.
sounds a little different.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate your explanation, and I'm satisfied.
And this IT position really takes over the day-to-day managing of all the IT divisions, where before it wasn't like that. And in fact, the IT network position will now supervise the IT database position will now supervise the other IT network administrator, who they currently are leveled the same. So that will just elevate that up based a lot on the supervising piece of it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Nope.
Okay, I'll move on to Rule 15, which is under our corrective disciplinary actions section. This policy change came from ICRIMP in our policy with our insurer. It's an employment practice liability deductible, which they recommended that cities that they insure add this into their personnel rules. So it's very clear that basically their policy is updating that ICRIMP will charge the city a $5,000 deductible for any adverse employment action that is not discussed with them first. So if we are terminating an employee, they want us to go to them so they're prepared if the city was to get sued, for example, for some sort of employment claim. They want us to go to ICRIMP first. So if we do that, we follow that policy, they will then waive the $5,000 deductible if they ever need to litigate or defend the city on the adverse employment action. So they'll waive it if we agree to consult with ICRIMP first, and then we follow their reasonable advice. So that was just added wording in that section. So all of our department heads know that it's very clear that you need to come to legal. We're going to call ICRIMP. We're going to consult with them before we move forward.
Yeah, I think that's a very appropriate safety net in the process.
Yeah, and in ICRIMP's mind, then it helps save the city money that isn't needed.
Yeah.
Charge the city.
And it's fair, I mean, to the employees and the supervisors know that, and for the public to know that, yeah, we don't just go charging off on a wild hair, that if you get to that point, it has gone through, multiple steps and with outside eyes. So anyway, yep, I think this is good.
And it really is our current process already, so we're not making any changes, we're just adding it to the policy. And then the last rule amendment is under our employment records section, and we just have a very short rule now, and the goal with adding this language is just so it's very clear how we handle our employee files, their medical files, how we disclose information to the public or other employers. what is disclosable, and then how will we destroy those public records, which is based on our records retention manual at this time. So it was really just to add a lot more clarity, and it, again, is our current process. It's just not written anywhere. And a lot of the information that was added in that section was ICRIMP recommended as well, and from their policy handbook.
Madam Chair? Thank you. I wanted to ask you a couple questions about that. Just to go back a little bit to the last section, there were a few more additions which I thought made perfect sense. For instance, if you are on disciplinary probation, you won't be eligible for a merit increase.
Oh, yes.
I think that makes perfect sense. But moving forward to the records retention, I had a couple questions on that. Section 2, access to the personnel file, that's all new language.
Yep.
The first paragraph, I don't disagree with the intent of it, but it just didn't flow right. It didn't totally make sense to me. Employees always have access to their personnel files, and so the way this reads, an employee would have to consult with the city legal counsel to even look at their own personnel files. And so that did not make sense to me. Now, everyone else that you've listed in here, as far as consult with city legal and they only have access for legitimate employment-related reasons, I think that's perfect language. But at some point, we have to separate out. The employee certainly has access to their personnel file.
Yes, agreed. And I see your point. It's not at the very top. It is in the second paragraph. About 6 lines down, an employee shall have the right to review his or her personnel file at any reasonable time.
So how do we make sure that when people are interpreting this, that they understand that, and maybe there isn't the wrong interpretation because of the first paragraph?
Well, I think that we could just add in that first sentence, only HR, the employee supervisor, just maybe add those couple words to make it more clear.
Well, you have, I guess I'm not disagreeing with who you have listed. It's just that I don't know that an employee I know that an employee doesn't have to go to speak to legal counsel to look at their file.
Right.
So how do we make sure that that's clear? I would just ask you to take a look at that. I think, I like what you have in the next paragraph, but it seems like it conflicts with the first paragraph.
Can we move that sentence, an employee shall have the right, in the second paragraph? Can we move that sentence up into the first paragraph?
That would be perfect.
That would be my suggestion.
Same
but
simple,
We
yep.
should
Yeah.
check with legal, but.
Sure. I think that would be very easy to do. That's the intent, and we always tell employees that it's your file, so come look at it at any time.
Yeah.
So that's the goal, that it's clear. And then back to your first point, Christy, when you brought up the last section, the no merit increase when you're on disciplinary probation. That wording, that sentence was just added for clarification. We had a department question that because it wasn't written anywhere. That's our process. We've never allowed an employee to have an increase if they're serving a disciplinary probation period.
Yeah.
But that was just added so it was clearly written that that's what we do.
I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just move that sentence up to the beginning so that's clear.
And it doesn't really change anything. I don't
Right.
think it has to go back out.
No,
Yeah.
we'll just move the sentence around so it's clear from the top.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And then I sent this out to all 3 of the employee groups, and there was no concerns through any of the employee groups. It's been posted. So everyone is in agreement on the changes.
Great. So are you looking for a
Looking for a
motion? Okay.
Oh, well, if we're ready, I would make a motion to approve the classification change to the city's classification and compensation plan for the IT database applications director, and approval of amendments to Rules 15 and 20 of the personnel rules, corrective disciplinary action and employment rule.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are moving on to item number 3, approval of award of performing arts grants. And Troy Timison, our city administrator, is here with us.
Good afternoon, thank you. Yes, another step in moving forward with a COVID 2020 year of changes, and that being a performing arts grant. A number of great people have been working on this, and council, this is one of those opportunities that you're taking advantage of because you've been good stewards of dollars, and we have these dollars, and they will be going back out to the community with your approval. Should the council move forward with this performing arts grant to these 4 organizations, the Coeur d'Alene Symphony, the Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater, the Chorale Coeur d'Alene, and the Inland Northwest Opera, using Lake Urban Renewal District dollars that are already in the city's hands. The Arts Commission has been around since 1999. We've amended the resolution a couple of different times, and in so doing have opened it up to performing arts, education, visual arts. Never did we anticipate a pandemic, and this year has changed everything, including the way in which our Urban Renewal Board has looked at this opportunity, worked through it. We've been in front of them a couple of different times, and they are totally in support of this particular piece of business. So with this pandemic and some really good advice from council members, including Council Member Miller, a group was put together to go out and seek grant applications, make sure that they have wage earners on the nonprofit. That was one of the big qualifiers for the groups to come forward. On June 23rd, the Arts Commission approved the one-time use of dollars from the Lake District Urban Renewal Funds. Subsequently, Ignite Board met in July and approved the use of those funds for this type of grant. We have been back in front of Urban Renewal District and the Ignite Board with presentations from all of these grant recipients, and they approved each and every one of these. So this grant must be with an organization that's in the boundaries of the Lake District. The arts organizations must show how they impact the economy. These groups have worked with the Arts Commission. The Arts Commission has approved all 4 of these, and the selection committee is making this recommendation. So unfortunately, we had a limited number of dollars, but it was $100,000, and the proposal in front of you today is to approve the Coeur d'Alene Symphony Orchestra, which had requested requested $50,000. Our proposal is to take $31,250 their way. Summer Theater had requested $50,000. Our proposal is $31,250. The Summer Theater, the Inland Northwest Opera had asked for $50,000. We would propose $31,250. And Chorale Coeur d'Alene had requested $10,000, and based on limited funds, we would propose $6,250 going their way. You would potentially put this on a consent calendar or take it to council, and we would look to disperse funds after it is approved by council. We have put together a grant agreement, and in it, it performs very much like show us what the dollars are being used for, invoice the city. We will then get the money to you based on what your request was and that it has been approved. They also have to comply with all the other items in what I would consider a pretty simple grant agreement. Staff has done all of this customized work on this. I'd like to thank legal. I'd like to thank Amy and all of the committee members that have worked on this. So with this expenditure, the Lake District, which has art dollars dedicated for the Lake District only, would still have about $225,000 that can be used, and that can be used well after the Lake District closes. So that is not a time-sensitive use of dollars. I know you've been a party to this. I would stand for any questions you might have, but we're excited to bring this right on time to you for follow-up. And Councilmember Evans has been integral to this, so we've been in front of you a couple times on this.
Madam Chair, I just can't remember, what I do remember is the council gave Troy and the committee full authority to move forward, make these decisions. I think council did ask to know what your decisions were. I don't think we were ever intended to get in and try to move things around. And so I'm satisfied. Because you said maybe it should come off the consent agenda, I'm not sure what the other council members will say about that. But to me, you've reported and you've made the decisions, and I'm satisfied with it. Thank you.
Yep, I think it looks like you're able to give them about 3 out of the every $5 they asked for. Everybody gets their fair share. Yeah, this has been seen all kinds of light of day, so I would, I'd say just leave it on the consent, and, if there's some council member that wants to pull it off, we know they can and they will, but otherwise, let's keep it moving.
And I would agree with that as well, and this has been vetted numerous times by staff and by the different boards involved. I do want to say a special thank you to Councilman Miller for spearheading this and the work that she did to support these wonderful organizations in our community when they need it most. So I feel very fortunate to be sitting here today and being able to have this in front of us.
Yeah.
So with that said, I'll entertain a motion.
Do you want to do that, Dan?
Oh, well, I've got it here.
Good.
I'll make a motion to approve the award of performing arts grants to Coeur d'Alene Symphony in the amount of $31,250, Inland Northwest Opera in the amount of $31,250, Coeur d'Alene Summer Theater in the amount of $31,250, and Chorale Coeur d'Alene in the amount of $6,250.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And now our final item of the day is a presentation from Mike Anderson, our wastewater superintendent. Welcome.
I've been sitting patiently, waiting. When I have to come to talk to you about a contract or something, it just is what it is. But when I get to talk to you about what wastewater does, then I get excited. So thank you for the opportunity. So with that, I'm glad I was able to get this thing up and running. The wastewater department, I wanted to to take an opportunity to let you know what do we do, basically, and who does it. So this is our mission statement, and it is in service of the protection of our community and our environment, we collect and treat wastewater, transforming it into a valuable resource. We constantly strive to improve the quality of water through new technology and ideas, and our focus is always to provide this valuable service as fiscally responsible stewards of the ratepayers' investment. So, the department at the bottom of the hill. Bears aren't the only thing that rolls downhill. So does our collection system. Our collection system is our most valuable asset as a city. There are over 225 miles of pipe with 11 lift stations. So it flows downhill via most of that pipe. Basically, our city is shaped like a bowl, and or half a bowl, moreover. And at the bottom of that bowl is our treatment plant. We do have 11 lift stations. So throughout the city, there's a few areas where we have to pump over the hill. Once we get over the hill, it all flows downhill. Like I said, over 225 miles of pipe, over 4,800 manholes that allow us access into those pipes. We have over 16,000 connections into our pipes. Those connections are mostly residential. We've got about 14,000 residential connections and about 2,000 or so commercial. They equal almost even flow. Residents make up about 55% of our flow, and the commercial makes up about 45% of our flow. all of this entire system, it's electronically mapped, because obviously that's a lot that I'm just throwing a bunch of numbers at you. We can't keep track of it, just like you probably couldn't keep track of it. So we've got an electronic system that does it for us. We've got everything mapped out. We know when we've been somewhere. We know when we've jetted, when we've vac, when we've repaired, what we've done, when it was installed, the size of it, the material. Thankfully, all that is available nowadays electronically. And the people that are handling it is our collection crew, which is 5.5 people, which doesn't mean a short person. That means we have somebody who is working there a couple days a week, and they work in another division, our compost division, a couple of days a week. One field inspector, his job is to inspect all the new developments that are coming in, connections, things like that, which obviously is a big job for one person. And one chief operator in the collections department. After it gets through collections, it lands at our wastewater resource recovery facility. Does that have a nice ring to it? I'm hoping to transition our wastewater treatment plant to titled as a water resource recovery facility. So in our mission statement, it even mentioned that. It's something that we're really looking to do to turn not just treating wastewater, but really to capture it, because it's a lot of value just to be dumping into a river or something like that. So our average flow is about 3.45 million gallons a day, and about 5 years ago, our average flow was about 3.45 million gallons a day. It hasn't changed very much over the last 5 years, and all this development, it really hasn't changed much. But the pollutants that are in that water, the solid particles and all that other stuff, has increased about 10% over that same 5-year span. So we're attributing that to improvements mostly in appliances and things like that. There's low flow toilets and shower heads and dishwashers and all that stuff. So we're attributing, each house is putting out less water, but because there's more people here, we're getting in more and more pollution. So that brings me to my next point here on this slide, is our pollutant removal efficiency. If you were to look, CBOD, that's the biological oxygen demand. So if something's in water, it takes a certain amount of oxygen, because some little bugs and microbes are going to attack that, and they need oxygen to do so. So this measures how much oxygen is going to be required to break down everything that's in the water. So you can see our removal efficiency. So influent to effluent, we remove about 99.5% of that CBOD. TSS, total suspended solids, sort of self-explanatory. We are removing 100% of that. Ammonia, 99.6, phosphorus, 98.7. We're right at 100% removal for all of these things. But what I wanted to emphasize to you is 3.45 million gallons is what? It's mostly it's water. 99.99, let me get the decimals right, 99.997% water. So it's mostly water, wastewater. But if you add up all these pounds here, we're looking at 15,000 pounds of stuff that we're removing every day at that treatment plant. So pretty cool stuff, and that's why I get excited about coming up here and telling you guys about it. And to do it, we're using 3 stages of treatment. Primary clarifiers, which are, can you see that mouse pretty good? Yeah. Primary clarifiers, which are these 3 guys over here. This one was original to the plant in 1939. So we've since covered these about 12 years ago now or so. We've covered them as the neighborhood changed from wood to people. We thought it'd be best to cover that because that's a stinky part of the plant. But we're still using that original clarifier along with 2 more now. And that area removes 2/3 of the pollutants. Just simply, things slow down, it settles out. From there, we're using our secondary trickling filters and clarifiers. These are our trickling filters, and here's our clarifiers. This technology, although it's a little different now, we went from Wrks to plastic and things like that. It's also original. We used that back in 1939, one of the first plants in the nation, and probably the first in the inland Northwest, or maybe even Pacific Northwest, to have used this secondary treatment. It's a pretty cool part of our history. And then thirdly is our tertiary membranes. That's our newest portion of treatment, a third stage of treatment. That's up here. This building's a little hard to see in this picture, but we've got other pictures and videos and stuff if you're interested, or come take a tour. But that is a third stage of treatment that uses membranes. That's that small 0.04 micron membrane that literally screens things out. Just so you got an idea a little bit, CBOD, TSS, those were the original things we were trying to clean up. And we were removing 97% of it before the membranes. But that wasn't our problem. We had to remove ammonia and phosphorus to pretty high levels. That's why we needed the membranes. So putting in the membranes, it's basically a really tiny filter. It took us from 97% to basically 100%. Nothing gets past them. And then obviously does a great job in the ammonia and the phosphorus. Yes?
What year did we put in the tertiary membrane piece?
We started putting them online in 2014 and 15. They didn't go fully online until the summer of 2018.
Okay.
So for a couple of years now, they've been fully online. And our plant is staffed by 6 operators. We've got 2 mechanics, 1 electrician / automation engineer, and 1 chief operator. So inside of the wastewater treatment plant is our wastewater lab. In our wastewater lab, we're running hundreds of samples every week for process control and reporting requirements. So what you're looking at here, this is a latchet. It measures phosphorus down to about 5 parts per billion. We run 10 different tests, including this phosphorus. You can see it automated there, kind of swinging around and doing its thing. Just because we have to run so many samples, it pulls that phosphorus and pumps it through these tiny little trains over here, which measure via light. They can measure down to 5 parts, in a billion parts of water, 5 parts of phosphorus. So pretty tiny amounts, and it has to be that stringent just to be able to look at the levels that we're trying to see. So we ensure our quality. Idaho doesn't have any sort of lab licensure. So we use QA/QC testing, quality assurance, and quality control. Every year, they'll give us a sample, and we don't know what's in it. And we have to run it across all of our stuff, and we have to be within a range, because none of this is exact science, quite honest. Or it's all exact science, but none of it is exact, I should say. So you're looking to get into a range. And every year we'll go through that, and we do these blind studies and make sure that we're performing appropriately. And it's staffed by 2 lab analysts and 1 lab / pretreatment supervisor. His job is, as well as being the supervisor of the lab, also to go out and inspect some of our industrial dischargers. We've got some industries in the city, just a couple actually. And we'll make sure that they're not putting in anything that's going to affect, obviously, the treatment plant. And then lastly, or lastly in the process, is our Coeur green compost. So this part is kind of exciting. To me, it closes the carbon loop. If you remember the water cycle, it rains, it dries out, evaporates, goes back up to the clouds, rains back down again. It just cycles around. Well, so does carbon. So carbon is what grows a tree into an apple, and then you eat that apple. It goes through you, it goes out of you, and would eventually become dirt again for that tree to regrow. And all we're doing is speeding up the process. That's all wastewater treatment really is speeding up nature's processes. So this part, that's the exciting part to me, is really closing that carbon loop and turning that waste into a resource. We make 5,000 yards of compost last year. That's about 500 standard-sized dump trucks loaded out, so quite a bit of material. We have our new, 3rd year now, compost giveaway right around Easter, either just before or just after. Don't do it the weekend of. We learned that the first year. We even this year we gave around the days of COVID. If you recall what was going on back around that time, we still gave away 300 yards of compost. So people are excited about it, and my job is really to get them appreciative or over the ick factor, to be like, wow, this is, if you can get past that, you can be like, wow, it really is a cool process. So that's staffed by 1.5 operators. That other half a guy who was in collections is over here as well half the week, along with a full-time compost operator and then a compost lead operator as well.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, did you just recently give some of that to the Atlas Mill site, the park?
Yes, this year we've given, I think, almost 2,000 yards to the Parks Department. They're
Yeah.
one of our biggest customers, but not a good paying customer.
Yeah, well, my dog
But we're glad
went
to put
right
that out
to
there.
it, and so I thought, I bet that's that compost, so,
It gives them a good head start on their grass.
Yeah.
So if you don't like cutting grass, don't put compost in the grass. But it gives them a good head start and allows it to grow a little quicker. Lastly, amongst our divisions, I thought it'd be best to break this up in divisions, is the admin staff. So the admin staffs consist of our administrative assistant, utility project manager, and a capital program manager. Those are our 2 project people. The utility project manager is in charge of projects that are out in the collection system, as well as they represent the wastewater department in when somebody comes in for a project review or something like that. They'll represent the wastewater department and say, okay, this is what you need to do. The capital program manager is in charge of projects that are inside the fence line, we call it, at the plant or at the compost facility. Some of those big projects like the membranes and all that other stuff that are needed, they handle that project. And then our assistant superintendent and myself, the superintendent. So what do we have on the horizon? What kind of projects do we have coming up that we're going to be showing you? And we have our new collections building, which you're probably familiar with. We've discussed that quite a bit. That's going to be going on the compost grounds / water department grounds there, sort of in the middle of the city, which is going to be beneficial. Obviously, it allows them to be centrally located and respond to calls rather than kind of being where the plant is, which is not in the middle of the city. Our operations center, which is a refit of the old collections building. We're going to take that old collections building once they move out, which is basically a big garage at this point, and turn it into the new operations control center. That's going to free up valuable real estate. Where the current operations control center was built in the 70s. If you were to, in that, I'll show you. I hate backtracking, but here we go. So if you look here in this meaty part of the plant, dead smack in the middle is the 1970s or so operations control center. So it needed to be rebuilt, and we were going to rebuild it, and we thought, well, somebody had this brainchild of an idea. Hey, we can actually do this other idea and save money and free up all this space right here. So it ended up honestly not saving money, but it did end up being a wash. It didn't cost us anymore, so that worked out well. But it definitely frees up this space here, which, as you can see, is right in the middle of everything. Our new centrifuge. So we've got an existing belt press that we're replacing this year. The belt press puts out about 16% solids. So it took that, it started off as 99.997% water, and we turned it into 84% water. So really kind of made it, drying it out basically. We're taking it from 16%, the centrifuge will take it to 25%. So we're drying out it even more. It's a 50% improvement, more or less. And this was an old piece of equipment that just didn't work for our compost anymore. It just makes way too much material, so we were replacing that. Coming forward to you with a facility plan update. So every 5 to 8 years, we have a facility plan that we update to you as needed, and it's in need of an update. We wanted to wrap up our tertiary building, which we have now, and then say, okay, where are we going to go at this point? Honestly, it got a little bit delayed due to everything that's been going on this year. But it is basically done. It's been reviewed by those regulators that want to review that sort of thing. And we're ready to bring it forward to you and see what you think of it at this point.
Great.
Also this year, we're going to be doing our collection system master plan update. So that's the same idea, except instead of the plant, it's out in the collection system. We're getting started on that this year. We were sort of waiting on Envision Coeur d'Alene to see where they see growth and all that other good stuff, incorporate their input. And we're going to get started on that, collecting data, basically run it through a model, and to see where we're going to have pinch points and where we're going to need to grow, all that other good stuff. So that's basically the end. I just wanted to show you this really cool photo. That was our outfall in 1981. For those of you that were here, we had major problems with our wastewater treatment plant back then, and that was the beginning of phase 1. So what we did was we decided, hey, you know what, obviously, we have a problem. It's not supposed to be like that. And if we want to grow, we can't make that any worse. It's already really bad. So we decided to take a phased approach and do this nowadays. It's so common, right? Everywhere you look, it's adaptive management. We've been doing that since 1980. It's a phased approach, and we're just finished up 5C2. So, it's been working. As you can see, this is that same spot in 2000. And it's, as we grow, I'm just pleased that we're able to, yes, we have these issues, but if we just settle down and analyze them, and we'll get through them. So excited.
We don't have any of those issues anymore, though, right?
No, we do not. No.
Okay, good.
I'm pleased to say.
Good.
So that's what you're looking at is probably a lot of that TSS. Like I said, nowadays our water is cleaner than the river water.
Good.
That's the end of my presentation. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much. Yeah, that was great.
That was great.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, it looks like we have completed our agenda for the afternoon. So with no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
Great.